Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the incredibly volatile July 2026 Jantar-Mantar protest. We're going to piece together the timeline, the intense state response, and the systemic issues driving the entire thing straight from the source material. We'll break down exactly how a localized sit-in morphed into a massive, heavily fortified clash right in the heart of New Delhi. So, let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap. We'll hit the hunger strike dilemma, the covert extraction operation, the hospital and the note, mobilizing the masses, the Parliament March clash, and finally, the root cause sitting at the bottom of the iceberg.
Section 1. The Hunger Strike Dilemma. To really get why things blew up the way they did, we have to look at the buildup, because this pressure didn't just happen overnight. June 6th, the Cockroach Janta Party, or CJP, kicks off their protest, but June 28th, that was a massive turning point. That's when award-winning activist Sanim Wangchuk joins in and begins a hunger strike. Fast forward to July 15th, and a highly debated public interest litigation is filed, but get this, it's not filed by Wangchuk's family or the CJP, it's filed by a completely unaffiliated private lawyer requesting force feeding. Literally the next day, July 16th, the court orders medical intervention.
You see, as Wangchuk's health declined, the government was basically trapped between three terrible options. Option 1, just let him strike. But public sympathy was growing by the day, and if a renowned activist actually died in the capital, absolute PR disaster. Option 2, forceful removal. Sending in the police to drag away a peacefully protesting 60-year-old man would trigger massive public outrage. Option 3, force the resignation of the relevant minister, Dharmendra Pradhan, which was what the protesters demanded. But doing that would project government weakness and signal that protests could successfully force their hand. So you can see why that vague court order on July 16th became the perfect, immediate catalyst for state action.
Section 2. The Covert Extraction Operation.
Armed with that court order, the state machinery moved with blistering speed. And honestly, the operation reads like a spy thriller. It was planned overnight by the newly appointed police commissioner, Anurag Kumar, who was brought straight in from the Intelligence Bureau. The precision here is wild. Step 1 relied heavily on surveillance. Police pinpointed a brief window right around 6:30 a.m. when CJP founder Abhijit Dipke routinely left the stage, meaning Wangchuk was left with the fewest volunteers. Step 2. Deploy 30 to 35 special staff disguised in doctors' clothing. Their job was to form a literal visual barricade using white bedsheets. And Step 3. Extract Wangchuk into a waiting ambulance in under 30 seconds, making absolutely sure not a single photograph or video could be captured by influencers on the ground.
Section 3. The Hospital and the Note.
Well, as it turns out, that seamless 30-second snatch and grab, it actually turned into a chaotic 2-minute physical scuffle. And the moment they reached Safdarjung Hospital, massive controversy erupted. We've got to look at this data objectively because it is highly contested. The hospital justified the forced removal by citing a dangerously low potassium level of 2.9 on July 18th. But Wangchuk's wife strongly alleged that this number was altered specifically to manufacture a medical emergency. She pointed out that a test taken on July 17th, the day before, showed a perfectly normal level of 4.3. And an independent lab test taken right after, on July 19th, showed a normal level of 3.5. She argued that the court order only allowed for medical monitoring, not forced hospitalization, making his removal completely illegal. So instead of shutting the protest down, the hospital extraction completely backfired. Wangchuk's wife managed to smuggle out this handwritten note. In it, he blatantly calls his hospitalization an illegal detention and urges people to march to Parliament on July 20th for what he called India's second freedom movement. And you can guess what happened next. That single note spread like wildfire across social media.
Section 4. Mobilizing the Masses.
The response to the smuggled note was unprecedented, turning a physical standoff into an intense technological game of cat and mouse. The state went all in. They deployed signal jammers, shut down mobile internet in the area, and set up AI-powered facial recognition systems to track people. But the protesters adapted fast. They ditched traditional networks and utilized offline Bluetooth mesh network apps like BitChat and Briar. Now, the crazy thing about these apps is they don't need the internet, and the denser the crowd gets, the stronger the network becomes. It's decentralized. The government even tried to order the removal of BitChat's code, but the app's creator publicly refused and actually leaked the government order online, which, of course, just drew even more attention.
Section 5. The Parliament March Clash.
By the morning of July 20th, tens of thousands of protesters were pouring into a heavily fortified New Delhi, despite Section 163 being imposed to explicitly ban gatherings. But right before the violence erupted, there was a specific incident that perfectly highlights the deep mistrust on the ground. A truck completely filled with stones was found parked right at Janta Montar. The CJP immediately alleged the police planted it there to frame the protesters for stone pelting. On the flip side, official police records showed that the truck, with license plate HR63E6865, had actually been seized 4 days prior in a totally unrelated case. It was just parked near the Parliament Street station. Regardless of the truth, that truck ended a massive layer of paranoia.
The original plan was supposed to be a peaceful, coordinated march, but with key leaders either arrested, in the hospital, or missing in the chaos, you had a massive crowd acting entirely without coordination. It all happened incredibly fast. At 11 a.m., different factions start pushing forward. Just 15 minutes later, at 11:15, the first barricades at the Parliament Street police station are broken. By 11:45 a.m., the Patel Chowk barriers fall. And finally, at 11:54 a.m., as the crowd crosses Kerala House, merely 700 meters from Parliament, the police initiated a severe lathi charge to stop the advance.
Let's ground the emotional visuals of that day with the hard data. The official Parliament Street General Diary actually logged the exact ammunition used under orders from a DCP rank officer. Police deployed 55 rounds of non-electrical shells, 15 rounds of electrical shells, 5 tear gas grenades, and 2 rounds of anti-riot plastic pellets. The source describes an absolute battle zone around Connaught Place, noting severe injuries among the youth and serious allegations of police using excessive force, striking above the waist, and targeting female protesters.
Section 6. The root cause. But to really understand why so many youths were willing to face extreme state force, literal tear gas and batons, we have to look below the surface at the systemic iceberg they were protesting against. 2.3 million. That massive number represents the sheer scale of the NEET exam taper leaks. We're talking about millions of families for whom these competitive exams are the absolute legitimate pathway out of poverty. When wealthy individuals can just buy the leaked exam papers, it systematically destroys the futures of the poor. It leaves entire generations feeling completely cheated out of their hard work.
And beyond the human cost, the financial hit to the country is staggering. When you factor in the costs of re-exams, travel, and coaching, it's an estimated 2,000 to 5,000 crore rupees. The deep, justifiable frustration driving the Jantar Mantar protests was this widespread belief that the government absolutely possesses the capability to secure exams. They do it for the UPSC, right? So the failure with NEET and SSC exams is perceived as a lack of intent, not a lack of ability. It's seen as sheer negligence that is ruining lives.
Which brings us to the core tension of this entire explainer. I want to leave you with this final thought to consider. When a system repeatedly fails its most vulnerable youth and destroys their futures, where exactly do we draw the line between maintaining necessary state security and a citizen's fundamental right to demand justice? Thank you so much for joining me for this analysis.